The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. I had to go down to the Bay Area this last week, and we were staying at the Berkeley Buddhist Priory, which is in Albany, right next to Berkeley. And Reverend Master Mako and myself, we took some walks up Solano Avenue, the restaurant capital of the Bay Area. There's a restaurant every five buildings. I don't know, actually. But anyway, there's also a couple, I think, but definitely still one nice Tibetan store. It has beautiful statues, really friendly proprietors, and they had a lovely little German Shepherd puppy. So all nice, very things. Okay. So as I was wandering around the store, I noticed a small banner. It caught my eye. And on the banner were these words of the Dalai Lama. So the Dalai Lama says, "Never give up, no matter what is going on. Never give up. Develop the heart. Too much energy in our country is spent developing the mind instead of the heart. Be compassionate, not just to your friends, but to everyone. Be compassionate. Work for peace. In your heart and in the world, work for peace. And I say again, never give up. No matter what is going on around you, never give up." You can find it on the internet if you want. I was surprised in looking in the internet. There's hundreds of quotes by the Dalai Lama. Very good use of the internet. Okay. Now, I don't know when or where the Dalai Lama said these words. And in Buddhism, as with all things, context can be important. Okay. I don't know the context, what audience he said that to. But I think it's safe to say that these words have a somewhat general application to us today. Okay? As we all know, the Dalai Lama and Tibet have gone through a lot. Okay? The Dalai Lama had to flee Tibet, as many Tibetans had to. And the Tibetan situation today is a very difficult one. It's not resolved by any means, very difficult. And yet, the Dalai Lama has chosen to live by his words. Be compassionate, not just to your friends, but to everyone. And to me, he personifies never give up, no matter what, no matter what is going on. I would say that his practice is unconditional. So in this little paragraph, the Dalai Lama talks about developing the heart. And he says, too much energy in our country is spent developing the mind instead of the heart. Your country could refer to a lot of countries. As I said, I don't know the context of this. But I'd venture to say that this underdevelopment of the heart refers to our country as well. Okay? It's not that the Dalai Lama is anti-intellectual or is anti-education or higher education. The mind is part of our makeup as human beings. And education can be an integral tool to broaden our minds and perspective. It can really do a lot for people. In Buddhism, our use of the term mind can sometimes be confusing because we use it in a lot of different ways. So my name is Daishin, so the Shin part of my name translates roughly as heart-mind. Okay, so Dai is supposed to be big, broad, great. I'm not saying I am this, but by any means, but Sometimes Shin is referred to as heart, or sometimes it's referred to as heart-mind. This mind up here, okay, if we want to talk about that, its job is to think, to analyze, to reason, to remember. If we're honest with ourselves and honest with our own experience of the use of this mind, we can say that the mind and the intellect has its place and it has its limitations. Whether we are Buddhist or not, I think universally we recognize that the heart, that's our spiritual center, okay, comes from a place that can be deeper and more profound than the intellectual mind. That's what I believe. Okay. The heart can see things from a still place that allows patience, compassion, kindness, and generosity to be part of our response as human beings to conditions. The heart takes the long view and offers possibilities for forgiveness, equanimity, and unconditional peace. So the Dalai Lama says, work for peace in your own heart and in the world. So when we speak about a heart response, it doesn't mean a withdrawal from the world. I don't feel as a Buddhist monk I'm withdrawing from the world. It's just the thing I thought I could do best as a human being and hopefully help other human beings in that way. Where to get this sentence? So the way we move in the world, I think, in our best way, is from a place of inner peace and compassion. So it's this peace within, and then we can take it out. It's not just like that. You don't have to have perfect peace to practice peace, but we've got to have some inner peace. Okay? Otherwise, we're just running around, usually. Recent events in our country, I'm not going to specify what those are. You can put a number of things in there if you want, have left some of us dismayed, shocked, and fearful. If we are dismayed, shocked, and fearful, if we're not careful, a despair and negativity can set in. We're human beings. Okay? We can feel like giving up and going elsewhere. Now, my teacher used to tell the story of a person that was fed up with the world before World War II, what was starting to happen. And so they went off, I don't know, they bought an island, must have had some money, in the South Pacific somewhere, a desolate island, and went off there. Well, it became one of the big battle sites of World War II. So we often don't escape, okay? Buddhist practice and meditation can really help us out of this kind of dip of despair, just shock, fearfulness, dismay. It can help us with this. In Buddhism, we say that we are not in control of everything. That's the way it is. Try as we might to control everything, we are not in control. It won't work. It just doesn't work. And change is a constant in our lives. Things are one way, and then they're another way, and then they're another way. We also say that all beings have Buddha nature. Sometimes beings don't manifest Buddha nature, but their possibility to turn things around is still there. And of course, in Buddhism, there is the law of karma. We don't escape consequences of our actions. At some time, they will come due. And this is not a law of vengeance, okay? It's simply the way it is. How could it be any other way? And we get the consequences get the consequences of our actions. There's no magic wand or pill in Buddhism for enlightenment and bliss. We have to get in there and do the work ourselves. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult. My teacher, Master G.U. Kennett, said that religion is about doing something about yourself. I said, it's very clear. It's not highfalutin anything. It's about doing something about yourself. The Buddha said, through effort, vigilance, restraint, and self-control, the wise person can become an island. No flood will overwhelm. So the Buddha was not using the analogy of an island as a place like that gentleman found in the South Pacific. It ended up not being very isolated, but he's not using an island as we isolate ourselves. But effort, vigilance, restraint, and self-control are really the context of living an engaged life, okay, with our fellow human beings. That's what we have to do. Maybe we have sometimes we have a rough time with other human beings, but that's who we have to live with. And human beings come in all sorts. And we're all sorts ourselves. We have to remember that. We can see all sorts outside of ourselves, but reflect on yourself. Okay? We're funny. So in Buddhism, we have the practice of the 6 Paramitas. I think many of you are familiar with it. And one of these Paramitas, if I'm pronouncing this word correctly, is Virya, V-I-R-Y-A. Paramita, the word paramita translates as roughly as crossing to the other shore. Okay, and that's the crossing from the shore of suffering over to the shore of freedom from suffering. So that's what the word paramita means. Virya, if I remember correctly, is from an Indian Iranian word that means hero. Okay? So virile comes from the word virya. Okay? And virya is making a courageous, heroic effort to awaken to the truth. It's not about some big macho effort. It's about an effort to help us awaken to the truth. This paramita has a really colorful list of translations, much more so than all the other paramitas. So people describe it as energy, zeal, effort, fearless effort, enthusiastic effort, perfection of energy, persistence in practice, diligence, vigor, joyful endeavor. And I'm sure there's many more. But that's very interesting that it has. Okay. And I think that fact really strikes a chord with me. There must be something about this effort that we have to make. I think it's a beautiful thing about Buddhism. It isn't just given to us. We have to make the effort. Okay? And the quality of our effort greatly affects how we are. We will be the people that we practice to be. Interestingly, right effort is also part of the Eightfold Path. So it must be, there's a real emphasis on right effort. There must be something to that. The opposites of right effort are sloth, defeatism, negativity, and cynicism. And I'm sure there's many more of those kind of qualities. When events leave us feeling dismayed, shocked, and fearful, cynicism and negativity can come knocking. Okay? We're just human beings. We get disappointed, disillusioned. Okay? And to quote a Buddhist folk song by Venerable Hong Shur, it's hard to practice patience when you're stressed. It's really hard. Okay, so to help cross over the shore of suffering, of the suffering of negativity, we have to take refuge in something more. And so I think we're very fortunate to have the practice we have, because there's a lot of refuge there. And there's the practice of meditation, which is non-reactive. It's about being still and acting from the stillness. It's not just about being still. You have to act too, but you can act from the stillness. And you can go against the stream of your upset, because we know as human beings from our rich experience, these things cause suffering. Okay? These things lead away from suffering. We know this if we're honest with ourselves. It doesn't take rocket science. So it's very easy in our world to tweet something cynical. I think that's the right term, tweeting the thing you do. And now that you can do that, you can tweet something, and it goes all over the cyber world, which is all over the world, okay? And if we're not careful, an offhanded comment that we made, in our disappointment or worse, is taken as a reality. I find that very strange, but it is. Or it's taken as a truth. And I think we better work on that one. So I think it's much better in these times to have a heart that is patient, generous, compassionate, and kind. These are the ways of the Buddha. The Buddha didn't teach any highfalutin anything. He taught patience, generosity, compassion, and kindness. And we can be bigger than the smallness of a world that can tit for tat. You did this, so I'll do this. And you react that way, now I'll react this way. And it goes on and on and on. And the chain of karma doesn't get broken. So we're not bad if we feel discouraged. I felt a little shocked in recent days. But the thing is, discouragement, being shocked, it's not a place to stay for long. Because it doesn't serve us well. Okay, it colors our whole world. Okay, there's something that has happened, and our reaction, if we're not careful, it colors our whole world. Okay, let's look at something totally different. October brought us 10 plus inches of rain in the Mount Shasta area. Last year at this time we had a half an inch of rain, I think. Yesterday's snow was the earliest snow we've had at our elevation in years. It was very common for it, a number of years back, for it to snow around Thanksgiving. It rained all through the night last night. For a number of years we just didn't have a long rain. And that sound of the rain on your roof, that beautiful sound, just didn't hear it. Okay? I know these things alone will not end global warming and 5 years of drought in California, but they help. And that's something. And I think there's something about, not meeting saying, oh, well, it's just a little bit. I don't know. We don't know what kind of winter we're going to have here. Hopefully it's wet and there's a lot of snow, but we just don't know. We can do what we can, to help in the universe. But there's positive, things going on all the time. And if we're not careful, when we get in a state of shock and negativity, and, we just don't see those things. We just see everything that's wrong. My teacher was a very positive person. She's a very realistic person. She felt Buddhism was a very realistic religion. It wasn't pessimistic. People say Buddhism, all you do is talk about suffering. No, actually, if we talk about suffering, we say that there is an end to suffering. That's what the Buddha always taught. Okay? So there is an end to suffering. And that end doesn't have to be death or leaving this planet. It's actually, you can find an end to suffering unconditionally. Okay? Her life, Master Jiyu Kenna's life, was not an easy life. She went through World War II in England. She trained in an all-male monastery in Japan. But the thing was about her, she never gave up on the human race. And her legacy, at least as I see it, is one of patience, generosity, kindness, and compassion. Sometimes people come to Shasta Abbey, and not everybody likes us, but some people say we kill people with kindness. It's a better way to kill people. Okay? And the thing was, she practiced these things in her everyday life. They weren't qualities that she just talked about and then that was it. No, you could see it in the way she lived her life. She was really expansive with human beings, and sometimes in very difficult conditions. She could be tough, but she was also really kind and compassionate. She was a straight shooter, but also she just let a lot of things go by, because she had all these crazy kids living with her. So I want to tell you this. I think there's something to this story, but this is something that happened to me when I was young. So I grew up in San Francisco. In high school, we used to practice in Golden Gate Park at Speedway Meadows, where a lot of the rock concerts happened in the 60s. And Speedway Meadows is a long thing in the park, but there used to be a baseball field there, and that's where we practice. Gopher holes, and you go crashing into the bushes after balls. It was great fun. So I had this baseball coach who, in a lot of ways was a very remarkable man. I don't know everything about his life, but he was a very remarkable man. And he'd come to practice. He didn't teach at our school. He taught at a school down in the Mission District in San Francisco. So we'd sometimes get there at practice before him. Often we did. And we'd be warming up. And he'd park on this hill above the baseball diamond. He'd get out of his car. Okay, so this is spring late winter and spring in San Francisco, sort of down by the beach. Well, it's foggy, it's drizzling, it's damp. It's not the best baseball weather. But this is the place we had to practice. So he'd get out of that car, and it would be freezing sometimes. He'd just be wearing a T-shirt up above on the upper part of his body. That's just kind of you'd think, whoa. And what he would often say, he would say it looks good. It's like a good day to practice. And the weather would be terrible. So we practiced, and we had a good time. And he was a big man. He was a very, very interesting man. There's a story about him in high school that he loved athletics so much that he competed for different schools rather than one school. I don't know how he did that, but okay. So one Saturday morning, it had rained the night before, kind of a heavy rain, okay? And I think through the night it rained. And it's a Saturday morning, we're supposed to practice. And these two friends of mine, they don't want to practice. Friends of mine on the team, they want to go across the bay to Sausalito or something, goof around. So they get there like a number of hours early, and they bring buckets of water, and they pour them on the field all over the place to make it all much worse than it was. Okay. So, and then they go away, but they come back early for practice. Because my coach on a Saturday, when he wasn't teaching, he would often come early. And, so they come early to practice, and they thought what would happen is he'd take one look at the diamond and say, it's too wet, I can't practice. Which actually happens, so they come early, he comes early to the practice. He has them do these little irrigation channels to drain all the puddles. And we practice, okay? I don't know if he knew. I mean, there's a number of things that happened back then that, I don't think we pulled any wool over his eyes. Okay? Karma catches up with you. Sometimes it's instant. So we're coming to Thanksgiving time. Okay? I like this time of year. It meant for me I didn't have to play football anymore. Season was about over. But I like Thanksgiving time. There's something about the weather changing. And it's, well, there's some problems with the traditional idea of what we're thankful for, but we can really be thankful for all that we have. It's easy to see what you don't have and what you're lacking. But you can also look at what you have. And this is true with things and people. Okay? We're very fortunate in this country. December brings Christmas. I usually really enjoyed the holiday seasons as a kid because it wasn't so much about the gifts and the holiday festivities. Gifts were nice, but it was about how people were with each other. Because at least what I sensed as a little kid, and there must have been some truth to it, is people were kind of nicer to each other. In history, they have actually stopped a war for a day around that time, and opposing armies have had a soccer match and a bit of a celebration. Unfortunately, they went back to the war, but it's a time when people are nicer to each other. Well, as Buddhists, we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait till Thanksgiving. We don't have to wait until the holiday season. And you know how they are. They're here and then they're gone. Our opportunities, as for all beings, are every day. They're about the way we live our lives. And I don't know, there's something about that. There's something about what the Dalai Lama said about never giving up. And it's our choice. So, thank you.